to me, that's a contradiction that I feel like the Quran, it seems pretty glaring right here in the video, right? Is God a merciful figure, or is God um, creating people and tormenting them, right? If there's a God creature creating human beings and holding them to a certain standard that would be impossible for them to fulfill, and then punishing them for not fulfilling that standard or not believing in it, then for one, it doesn't seem like a very merciful God, right? And it doesn't seem like justice to me either. Right. Welcome back to the YouTube channel where we're going to be reading the Quran for the first time. In the previous video, we just covered the first chapter and I gave my justification for my agnostic views. If you want to check it out, go ahead and click on that video. Here's the Quran again. If you are following along, this is the website I'm using here, clearquran.com. And yeah. Chapter 2 is called The Heifer, or the cow, right? That's the title of the chapter. And like I said, looks like it's a pretty large chapter. It's probably going to take more than just one video to get through it. Maybe more like 4 or 5. We'll just have to see. So, chapter 2. In the name of God, the gracious, the merciful. Alif, Lam, Mim. I'm not so sure what those words mean. This is the book in which there is no doubt, a guide for the righteous. Those who believe in the unseen and perform the prayers and give from what we have provided for them. And those who believe in what was revealed to you and in what was revealed before you and are certain of the hereafter. These are upon guidance from their Lord. These are the successful. As for those who disbelieve, it is the same for them, whether you have warned them or have not warned them, they do not believe. God has set a seal on their hearts and on their hearing, and over their vision is a veil. They will have a severe torment. So this is interesting, okay? Or if we're characterizing God, in the first chapter as this gracious and the most merciful, right? And yet, it's saying in verse 7 here, God has set a seal on the disbelievers' hearts, right? So we're distinguishing between the believers who are successful and the disbelievers. And the disbelievers, it's saying that God has set a seal on them and their ability to, a seal on their hearts and their hearing and their vision, right? And they will have a severe torment. So to me, this doesn't seem very merciful, right? Especially if God is the one who has set the seal on their hearts. And then they're still going to be punished. That seems like a contradiction in the way we're categorizing, in the way that we're characterizing God, right? Is God a merciful figure, or is God creating people and tormenting them, right? Like, one of the things that it's also, the first chapter characterizes God as the master of the day of judgment. it got me thinking about, human beings. It's very natural for us to want to be, to hold ourselves to some sort of standard. Um, you know, this idea of a last day of judgment or an ultimate justice that might occur. I think everyone can kind of sympathize with the idea, that maybe you've been wronged, and we all kind of trust that there's going to be some justice that that will come, right? You know, the person who has done bad will get what's coming to them, and the people who have done good will get what's coming to them. You know, I think even atheists believe, in some sense, in some sort of a cosmic justice that if it doesn't happen in this life, somehow it might happen in another life. I feel like this idea is really compelling, whether or not it's true or not. I feel like even atheists have to hold themselves to some sort of standard, right? Like, how are they going to be judged? Or how are they going to be measured? How is your life going to be measured? And by what measure is it going to be, upheld? I feel like that's what compels, or maybe that's another distinction between the different religions. Isn't just the way that they conceive of God, but but the standard that they're holding themselves to. What is the threshold to be, quote unquote, saved, from this judgment, that is potentially going to come. This judgment on your life, the way you lived your life. How are you going to be measured, right? In the Christian view, then it's about belief in God, having faith in Jesus as God, right? Faith in Jesus, and that's what's going to cause you to be saved, right? So I'm interested a little in how is the Islamic framework. What is their standard for avoiding this final judgment, or enduring maybe the continuous judgments, right? Because the way I kind of look at it, maybe there isn't a final judgment, but we live with the consequences of our actions as we live our lives, right? The judgment isn't necessarily coming down the road. The judgment's happening in a lot of senses in our current lives. But I also see, sometimes the justice isn't happening in this lifetime. So it makes sense why people in general want to believe in a cosmic justice. Call it karma, or attribute it to a god or a last day of judgment. I do see, I feel like there's a commonality for human beings, regardless if you're atheist or a theist, to hold at least yourself to some sort of standard, right? That way it might be kind of disingenuous for atheists to say that they aren't holding themselves to any standard, right? Because you have to hold yourself to some standard. How do you feel like you're going to measure your own life, or like by what measure is anything really occurring, and it's a hard one to answer, right? Because if Christianity is true and everyone's just going to be measured based on whether or not they believed in Christ, then you have to take into account all the people throughout history who never had the opportunity to even know about Christ. So how could that be the standard? For if there's a God creature creating human beings and holding them to a certain standard that would be impossible for them to fulfill, and then punishing them for not fulfilling that standard or not believing in it, then for one, it doesn't seem like a very merciful God, right? And it doesn't seem like justice to me either. There's countless people who lived prior to the Abrahamic religions or beyond the reach of it in different cultures who never had access to any of the Abrahamic religions. So are they just going to be tormented? Are they going to be held to that standard that, you know, Christians hold themselves to, or that Muslims hold themselves to, or Jewish people hold themselves to? You know, to me, it doesn't really seem like it seems to me like a contradiction, right? You can't characterize God as being all merciful and then at the same time just ruthless, in a sense where they're creating beings and then punishing them. You know what I'm saying? So to me, that's a contradiction that I feel like the Quran, it seems pretty glaring right here in the very second chapter of the book. So if there's any viewers who want to leave a comment about that, that would be great. Anyway, let's continue. Verse 8. Among the people are those who say, "We believe in God and in the last day," but they are not believers. They seek to deceive God and those who believe, but they deceive none but themselves, though they are not aware. Okay, this is interesting. This points to, in my view, people who are breaking the third commandment, like I mentioned in the other video, right? Taking the name of God in vain, right? People who claim to know God. The claim itself to know God is an act of vanity, and they literally are doing it to gain the attention and kind of like, look at me, I believe in God, I'm a believer in some sense, but that's all they're doing. They're just trying to, it's purely an act of vanity, right? And they're not even aware that they're doing it. They think that's really what they should be doing, you know? If you just claim to believe, that's all you need. I feel like, you know, that's kind of one of my biggest gripes with Christianity growing up in the West, is this idea that all you need to do is believe in Christ and you'll be saved. You know, it seems to me that kind of like a cop-out, right? Anyway, verse 10. In their hearts is sickness, and God has increased their sickness. They will have a painful punishment because of their denial. So this is interesting. If God is increasing the sickness and punishing them, you know, it seems like it's not the most merciful characterization of a God. And again, I might be, you know, misinterpreting the way that it's characterized, but to me, this is a pretty big contradiction. But let's continue. And when it is said to them, "Do not make trouble on earth," they say, "We are only reformers." In fact, they are the troublemakers, but they are not aware. And when it is said to them, "Believe as the people have believed," they say, "Shall we believe as the fools have believed?" In fact, it is they who are the fools, but they do not know. And when they have come across those who believe, they say, "We believe." But when they are alone with their devils, they say, "We are with you. We were only ridiculing." So, okay, there's the hypocrites, right? People who are hypocritical about their belief. It is God who ridicules them and leaves them bewildered in their transgression. Those are they who have bartered error for guidance. But their trade does not profit them, and they are not guided. Their likeness is that of a person who kindled a fire. When it illuminated all around him, God took away their light and left them in darkness, unable to see. Deaf, dumb, blind, they will not return. Or like a cloudburst from the sky, in which is darkness and thunder and lightning. They press their fingers into their ears from the thunderbolts in fear of death, but God surrounds the disbelievers. The lightning almost snatches their sight away. Whenever it illuminates for them, they walk in it, but when it grows dark over them, they stand still. Had God willed, he could have taken away their hearing and their sight. God is capable of everything. Again, I have to come back to this characterization. It seems at odds with the characterization of God in the first chapter, where God is gracious and merciful. Here we have God, creating like disbelievers, right? Taking away their sight and hearing, right? If God is the one who can make you just not believe, it makes me wonder, what is the concept? How does Islam deal with the issue of free will? Right. This is what I'm kind of wondering at this point. I assume they believe in free will, but so far it is a little bit contradictory. It seems a little bit contradictory to me and confusing, right? Especially when the concept of what I'm supposed to be believing in is still unclear, right? Like, am I in the disbelieving category or am I in the believing category? Because I don't even know what the belief, what the concept that I'm supposed to believe in is yet, right? And again, we're just in the beginning of the book. This is the very beginning of the second chapter, so we have a ways to go. But it is opening up a lot of questions. So, verse 21. O people, worship your Lord who created you and those before you, that you may attain piety. He who made the earth a habitat for you, and the sky a structure, and sends water down from the sky, and brings out fruits thereby as a sustenance for you. Therefore, do not assign rivals to God while you know. Again, this is pointing to, a unity of the entire universe. And, something I had mentioned earlier in the previous video is that if two people have the same idea of a oneness in the universe, there should not be a conflict between the two of you, even if you're from different cultures, right? Because the oneness is beyond both your conception. There's this idea, this common idea that that God is omnipotent, right? But if God is omnipotent and has the power, capable of everything, then I feel like there's no room for humans to have free will, right, under that type of framework. In some sense, the way I look at the story of Christ is as a metaphor for God relinquishing some of his power, sacrificing some of his own power so that we can have free will, so that we can ultimately realize ourselves as, spiritual beings with creative potential, right? That's the way I see the Christ story, as a metaphor. That's why, there's a lot of things that I really like about Christianity. I just don't believe that we should be conceptualizing Jesus as God and putting this figure of Jesus, right, before God, because that's, like I said in the other video, it directly goes against the second commandment, to do such a thing, or even the first commandment, right? Put no other gods before me. And if you are in doubt about what we have revealed to our servant, then produce a chapter like these and call your witnesses apart from God, if you are truthful. But if you do not, and you will not, then beware the fire whose fuel is people and stones, prepared for the disbelievers. So this is actually kind of funny to me. It's like, if you're in doubt about this, then drop a track that hits harder than this, than like what we're dropping right now. And by the way, you can't do it. You can't drop a verse harder than this. So prepare yourself, for the fire. I think that's actually kind of a funny thing to say. Um, Beware, like, the eternal fire, right? It's affirming this type of idea that believers will be saved and disbelievers will go, or to hell, or be cast away into the eternal fires. And maybe that's the standard. Is that the standard that the Islamic faith is going by? The believers are saved and the disbelievers. All right, because at this point, I don't know if I'm a believer or a disbeliever, because I don't know what the belief is quite yet, right? Um, you know, According to the Christian standard, it's the belief in Jesus as God, right? So, what is the Islamic standard? Is it just a oneness? You know, we'll see. And give good news to those who believe and do righteous deeds, that they will have gardens beneath which rivers flow. Whenever they are provided with fruit therefrom as sustenance, they will say, "This is what we were provided with before," and they will be given the like of it. And they will have pure spouses therein, and they will abide therein forever. God does not shy away from making an example of a gnat or something above it. As for those who believe, they know that it is the truth from their Lord. But as for those who disbelieve, they say, "What did God intend by this example? He leads astray many thereby, and he guides many thereby. But he misleads thereby only the evildoers." So is it saying that he is misleading the evildoers? Why would God mislead evildoers? Like, I might be getting this completely wrong. If there's someone out there who can correct me on this. But it seems to me that it's saying God is the one who is misleading evildoers. And he's guiding the believers. At what point do we have power to believe or disbelieve? Is there any room for human being, for agency, in this framework? I might be getting this wrong, so please don't come after me if I'm way off base with this interpretation. Those who violate God's covenant after its confirmation and sever what God has commanded to be joined and commit evil on earth, these are the losers. How can you deny God when you were dead and he gave you life? Then he will put you to death. Then he will bring you to life. Then to him you will be returned. It is he who created for you everything on earth, then turned to the heaven and made them 7 heavens. And he is aware of all things. When your Lord said to the angels, "I am placing a successor on earth," they said, "Will you place in it someone who will cause corruption in it and shed blood, while we declare your praises and sanctify you?" He said, "I know what you do not know." And he taught Adam the names, all of them, and he presented them to the angels, and said, "Tell me the names of these if you are sincere." They said, "Glory be to you. We have no knowledge except what you have taught us. It is you who are knowledgeable, the wise." He said, "O Adam, tell them their names." And when he told them their names, he said, "Did I not tell you that I know the secrets of the heavens and the earth, and that I know what you reveal and what you conceal. And we said to the angels, bow down to Adam. They bowed down, except for Satan. He refused, was arrogant, and was one of the disbelievers. So this is interesting. Okay, the narrative into this is taking an interesting turn here. Right. This might be a good spot, though, to take a little break in the chapter. Seems like we've got, quite a bit out of this first little chunk here. The plan was to separate this chapter into some sections, so we'll just take a break at this point. Follow the channel, click the notifications so you can continue on with me in the remainder of chapter 2. Thanks, y'all.